Now, Racing Louisville, they have clinched a postseason spot, but there was a lot of other movement throughout this decision day in the NWSL. We finally have our playoff preview. The picture is absolutely set, and a big seeding game came down to Orlando, Seattle, because these teams were fighting for a playoff position to host who was going to make it into that number 4 spot, McCall, and it ends up being a 1-1 draw between these two. Orlando, they rise ahead of Seattle in the standings, so they will play at home, taking on Seattle. But when we think about this decision day game, McCall, what were some of the things that you took from it watching Orlando, Seattle?
I mean, a huge thing that stood out for me was the game changers. The substitutes for me were the standouts. They came on, they made an impression, they changed the game. They actually created some stuff in the attack, whereas Seattle had a very, very quiet first half. I mean, I was actually shocked that they made it out 0-0 at halftime because they were under a lot of pressure. They weren't able to exercise their wingbacks getting high up the pitch. They were so low on the field. They were enduring so much pressure in their defensive third. And then they made some substitutions at halftime. Jordan Heidema came on. I thought she was great. Montesir came on. I thought she was great. And, you know, for both teams, honestly, for the Pride and the Seattle Reign, their game changers, their substitutes were absolutely that.
Yeah, it came down to like who was going to bring the spark, and maybe with how it went in the first 45, maybe it shouldn't have been that surprising or shocking that the goals came as late as they did. But we eventually got a couple, but it ended up in this stalemate, and we're going to get basically a sequel of it, you know, in about a week or so.
Mm-hmm.
But I had this one on my radar, not because I was like looking for particular fireworks or anything like that. Like, these are two teams that have kind of struggled in front of goal and have found themselves still sort of figuring it out in the final third, even as the playoffs are about a week away at this point. But just what it could imply for that first round of playoffs. And now we know it's going to be that repeat matchup, and everything that the Reign and Laura Harvey were coming off of into this game, all the discussion of a funny podcast, the conversation that she had with ChatGPT, and what is she going to roll out, and is she still going to roll out the 5-back? And I kind of loved that it was still the 5-back, because like that is who they have been this year. I love that they didn't shy away of what has kind of become who they are, and it's their staple of play. And even though maybe it feels kind of like unpredictable, like those are the things that work out for teams a lot of time in the postseason. And so I do think it's very, very funny, a lot of the reaction that she's gotten for that. But at the end of the day, you need your players to go out there and absorb it. You need them to execute it. And they're doing that. And I would almost venture to say that alongside like Louisville, like Seattle's going to be one of those very, very frustrating teams to play if they get deeper and deeper into the playoffs.
Well, we will get to see Orlando, Seattle in the quarterfinals. McCall, if you could pick one thing for each team that they're going to work on this week heading into that playoff game against each other, what would it be?
So here's the question and the answer, because it's incredibly difficult to play the same team back to back, right? So that opponent basically just felt you out, studied you. But the beneficial part about it is what I said. The game changers, the substitutes are what made a difference. So now it's the question, if you're Laura Harvey and you're Seb Hines, now do I need to select different players to start? And so this is the old age question. Did I make a mistake and now I fix it? Or do I go out with what I had because it was neck and neck? So it's going to be really interesting to see who's in that starting 11, because it did go better in the second half for both teams when those substitutes came on. So, I mean, I think for me, obviously in the first half, the Seattle, yes, it's a good idea to play a 5-back, but only if your wingbacks don't get stuck. You have to build out in a 3 when you have the ball, and almost make those outside in the 5 become midfielders. But they were so pinned so low that they couldn't get anything in the attack, and they were just taking waves and waves and troves against them. So it's okay if they do that again.
Exhausting. It's exhausting to play like that.
That's why they're staying. They're going to just stay there and hang out in Orlando.
Right. But then now you go into extra time. Mm-hmm. Now you go into pens. So you cannot play that game the same way, because you're going to have to put in some more energy on those legs, and those substitutes are going to have more work to do. So it's a completely different ball game within the same competitor. So it's like, what do you change? What do you keep the same? And that's what's going to be so exciting about that matchup.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. Another one that was pretty intriguing to watch today on Decision Day was Portland Thorns against Houston Dash. It ends with the Thorns taking down Houston 2-0 in this game, which means Portland Thorns, they finished third in the standings. A bit surprising, Sandra, considering when we go back to March before the season started, it was like, okay, no Morgan Weaver, no Sophia Wilson. What's going to happen? They lost to Beattie a few weeks ago in a trade to Angel City. Yet Portland's able to get it done, and they finished top 3.
They find the answer, right? They find the way. I love that it's sort of been like star player by committee for them this season, because those were the biggest questions, and that's why many out there did not think that they were going to be this high. That maybe they had enough to crack a postseason appearance, but a top 3. Portland said, we got enough. And when you have that kind of shakeup, maybe midseason, maybe you're like, that adds a jolt. Losing Hina Sugita maybe kind of forced some decisions to be made, because I think that was the conversation, like, what is going to be the best midfield personnel for this team moving forward, and what is that going to look like when they're all healthy? Because there was sort of this plug in and play moments with Olivia Moultrie kind of working her way back from some things, or even Jessie Fleming at moments, and for a long time it really was just consistently Sam Coffey. So for them to kind of just go out and do what they did this season with a player almost week to week wearing that crown of star player, I think it's very impressive. And you can go back and look at each week and maybe kind of pluck out who that X factor type of player was going to be. Was it Sam? Mm-hmm. Some weeks it was Sam Coffey. Some more recent weeks it's been Olivia Moultrie. Mid-season, a lot of times Raylan Turner or Raina Reyes, and it's like Petra Torden. It's like you can go down and like pluck a bunch out. And so something very cool has happened along the way for this Thorns team, where it's like not only did they answer those questions in the beginning of the season about who it was going to be and who it was going to step up, now they're going into the playoffs saying, well, it can really just be anybody.
Yeah, I think this was a silent killer team in Portland Thorns this year, because they did have, I like how you said that, stars by committee. It was different people and different players stepping up week over week, and also sometimes unassuming players, right? I think Olivia Moultrie had a lot of pressure on her, and without some heavy hitters in front of her to score goals, I mean, I'm looking at Sophia Wilson. She stepped up and she rose to the occasion at now 20 years old. It was a good year for Olivia Moultrie, and I am happy for them to be in third, to make it into the postseason. So Portland Thorns, they take down Houston on a 2-0 win. So they finish third in the standings. So that means they will host against San Diego Wave. So third will host 6th place. As the standings shook out, Kansas City and Washington, they had clinched first and second place. So Kansas City will host Gotham in the quarterfinals. Orlando will host Seattle. Portland Thorns against San Diego, and then Washington Spirit against Racing Louisville. I mean, these are some mouthwatering matchups we have here, McCall. Which one are you keyed in on? You're excited to watch next week?
I mean, I'm going to call myself out right now. If you would have asked me at the beginning of the season if the Portland Thorns was going to finish in third, I would have said no way. But exactly to y'all's points that you just made is it's a long season, have to share the load. And that's exactly what the Portland Thorns have done. They have shared the load amongst each other all season long. Like you said, some players were hot at certain times carrying the team. Let's not forget about Kaya Hanks. She was wonderful for them before, her injury. And for me, that's what makes a difference in a team is you've got to share the load and work together. And then you look at teams like Gotham, who was leaning on Astaire. Astaire was carrying them for a long time. Astaire goes cold. We'll look at them now. Now they end up in 8th. And that's exactly the difference of, are you relying on one player or are you a team?
So when I look at the playoff bracket, Kansas City against Gotham, I think a lot of people could say, well, Kansas City is going to wipe the floor. They're going to run away with this as the Shield winners, and what they've done, they very well may. But Gotham being in 8th place, McCall, you know all too well what happens when Gotham, in the final day of the regular season, gets into 8th place. They can cause chaos. The last time they did it, it was 2023. They went on a run, end up winning the championship. You, McCall, end up winning the championship. And I don't think anyone is safe. So Kansas City Gotham, to me, is a matchup that I think Gotham's going to be disappointed in their performance today, falling to North Carolina, having a lot of rotation in the lineup that Juan Carlos Amaros rolled out with. And it is going to be a group that has a bit of fire underneath of them, that didn't play their best football today, that has 6 days to regroup, get back out there, because they're still in it. They still have a chance. And it is almost this David and Goliath moment where Gotham can say, we are going to CPKC, to the Shield winner's house, and we're going to take them down. If I'm Kansas City, I'm absolutely terrified to play Gotham next week.
A handful of those players. Here's a couple of things, though. A handful of those players on Gotham have familiar feelings of being number 8 and then going number 1, right? So that is one thing. And I do think that they have a very strong roster of players that peak at the right times and come alive when it matters on the world stage and the club stage. But this is just like we were saying earlier, that it matters where you finish and how you show as a club. Well, KC showed a little bit of their weaknesses or holes that you can get at them today, too. So those two combining things could make for more of an interesting matchup than anyone could imagine.
I'm just very curious. I'm just kind of curious how Gotham will bounce back from their decision day performance into the postseason. I know it's like, hey, forget about what you did. It's a new series in front of you. Who cares? But I mean, it matters a little bit how you form, how you go into the postseason. And I'm sure they're going to be hungry to have a response, and quite possibly hungrier to get it against the best team in the league this year. It is not going to be easy, because despite Kansas City's kind of more glaringly obvious things along the way, where it's like, yes, Gotham didn't have Esther, but you have to make those adjustments if you're Kansas City, if you don't have this prolific player in your MVP in Temwa Shawinga. And then now we're going to have to wait and see for Bia Zanerato, because she came out of this decision day match with what's hopefully going to be a small knock. But Kansas City somehow, even on decision day, still finding ways to generate history of their own. They've been checking off all these boxes, and they said, here's another one. We can absolutely come from behind and win a game, and do it without our star attacking players in Shawinga and Zanerato. So if anything, I'm like, does that somehow make them stronger? And I think if you're Gotham, if you're the coaching staff, you maybe try to have that quick memory. You put this game behind you. You definitely rally your defense back in shape and say, hey, part of this was on us. We planned this. We asked you to go out and execute. It didn't work out. This is what we're thinking of instead, because we saw some of that rotation and that disjointedness, and like just didn't look good for Gotham against in decision day. And so going up against Courage, they got bit. They paid for it. And blame it on the weather, blame it on the rain all you want. They still, two teams were playing in those conditions, and one of them looked better throughout the duration of it. So I have to imagine, who's available will obviously come into play. And, if Emily Sonnet and Jess Carter have better games, then this is going to be a very difficult day for Kansas
That
City.
was uncharacteristic of Carter and Sonnet today. They don't usually play like that.
And so that's what I'm saying. This new game in the playoffs is going to be different.
It's a clean slate once you go to the postseason.
It is, but inconsistencies in your lineups can be a problem. And we saw that today with Gotham, and also inserting Bia and Temwa back into it possibly could be a wrinkle. And again, just not having that flow and, having those inconsistencies in your players that are available in your lineups, it's really difficult as a player when you're playing with different players around you in your unit. The best thing that you want going into the playoffs is momentum, gelling, and chemistry. That is the best thing that you want. And both teams are kind of in a similar position.
You could also throw Washington Spirit into that mix. They played Utah today in this decision day matchup. They end up losing 1-0 in this game. And it was slim pickings for Adrian Gonzalez at Washington Spirit. The team that he had was dealing with a lot coming after the international break. A lot of players unavailable, a lot of players dealing with injuries. I mean, the international window coming this past week before week 26 of 26 in the NWSL is absolutely not ideal. And Utah got the best of Washington today. I mean, the bench for the Spirit had 5 players on it. 2 of them were goalkeepers in this game. I mean, that is tough. That is a heartbreaker on the final day if you're Washington Spirit, now knowing that you have to go into the postseason and play a Racing Louisville team that is riding on everything that they just put into this decision day game.
I feel like at this point, with the way the women's schedule is shaping up with all the tournaments and international competition going on, all the club coaches are just praying that their players don't play much when they're away at their national teams. Honestly, I mean, that's the best thing that they can do, because they're just asking so much of these players now, and the demand is so difficult that their likelihood of fatiguing or picking up a knock or an injury from overuse is just greater than it ever was before.
But it's also the playoffs. It's like, let's go. Like you have 3
Rub
games.
some dirt on it.
Yeah, you have 3 games potentially.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of teams could say, like, okay, Kansas City might run away with this, but they also very well may not, because it is the playoffs and anything can happen. So the quarterfinals are set November 7th, 8th, and 9th. Kansas City, Gotham, Orlando, Seattle, Portland, San Diego, Washington, Louisville. Hit me with playoff match to watch, Sandra. I'm starting with you.
Spirit Louisville, baby. I mean, we're just talking about Spirit, and it's going to come down to who's available, who's ready to go, and honestly, who's ready to sacrifice and take some punishment. This might need to be a little bit of a different challenge for the Spirit, in that you're asking of your players to not only get a win and to not try to change their identity too much and do the things that work for them. But if you don't have the personnel to kind of plug in and execute, you will have to make some adjustments, and maybe some of that will be mentally, and that you're going to have to make that pass knowing that you're going to get knocked the hell out. And so some of it is going to have to maybe come on the mental side of things. So we'll see what happens. I'm very much looking forward to number 2 versus number 7 in Racing. Spirit Louisville for me.
McCall?
I'm 1 versus 8 all day. Who doesn't want to enter upset city? I mean, I could be a little bit biased because my Gotham girlies, some baddies, but I mean, truthfully, especially, what we've seen in the past, and especially last season, winning the Shield and winning the championship from a club. So for us, it's like, is that on the horizon for Kansas City? Can they do that as well? Or is this... Can you imagine them losing first round in the playoffs?
Oh, talk about upset city. That would be nuts.
Tough.
That would be nuts. Guys, Portland, San Diego, number 3 versus number 6. That is where my eyes go, because which team is hitting their stride at the right point and the right moment? And San Diego has gone through some ups and downs recently. How are they going to fare in the postseason with a coach that doesn't know what American playoffs are like, and a team that has faced some adversity this year? Who's going to step up? Can it be done by committee? And I think the same can be said for Portland. I think that the roster makeup of these 2 teams makes it a really intriguing matchup for the quarterfinals.
And nobody chose Orlando and Seattle.
No.